All right, hello everyone. For anybody joining in, my channel go by the name of Foxtail Cinematics, and as my special guest here in my second live stream ever on this channel, I have Austin St. Pierre, another great, awesome YouTuber. Introduce yourself.
My name's Austin. This is my first live stream ever. I also have a YouTube channel by my name that you can kind of see in the chat there. I've been on YouTube now, I think a little over 2 years, maybe almost 3 years. I started it. Well, I actually started writing a blog, and I kind of wanted to branch out into video content. And so I was going to post like a few videos on Facebook, but then I was like, well, let me try this YouTube thing. So I started making a few YouTube videos, and the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually been watching your videos probably since like pretty close to the beginning. It's been a while.
Okay, yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Actually, was I was going to ask do you remember what like one of the first videos that you watched of mine was?
Actually, the first I can't remember how long ago this was, but I was really bad at the time with keeping up with like people I was subscribed to.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I was subscribed to a lot of people, I was really bad at keeping up with videos,
Yeah,
just because I was making my own, and
right.
yeah, just like it's really hard to keep up, especially when you're so busy with trying to make your own videos.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one of the first ones that like really got me into your videos was where the subject was on Christian themed video movies and
Mm-hmm.
why you thought like that they were all pretty bad,
Yeah,
and you kind of go over. I can't remember which one you were talking about. I
probably
think it was the
Ragamuffin
yeah,
was the
yeah. I
only.
think it was
That's like the only.
Ragamuffin.
I called it like the only great one.
Yeah, I remember watching that video because I was kind of on a kick of watching different types of YouTubers with different like film lovers with different views, and
Mm-hmm.
not just like different views on life or whatever, like anything like that. And so I was
Yeah.
kind of watching a lot of videos themed around like Christianity and like the film community and that side.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I kind of ended up stumbling onto one of your videos, and I really liked it because you seemed very open minded, which I
Mm-hmm.
really like. That's why I
Yeah.
love your videos. You're very open minded, and you don't come off as judgmental as a lot of others might seem.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why
Yeah.
I really liked your videos.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not afraid to like put out criticism where I feel like it's due, but at the same time, I want to kind of like give the benefit of the doubt too. So
Yeah.
I try to find like a healthy balance of not necessarily like exclusively like bashing on all that kind of stuff of like where it's just like cheesy or overdone or preachy or something, but at the same time like looking for kind of like the good aspects or potential, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because that's really why I connected to that particular video and your videos in general, because I have the same feelings about a lot of Christian theme films.
Hmm.
I think that the foundations of them and what they're going for is there, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. But I always think they could always be better. But I feel like they're kind of boxed in to what
Hmm.
they kind of think that they're supposed to be, when really
Yeah.
it could be anything. Like a film
Yeah.
that I see, like a lot of Mel Gibson films have really big Christian themes because
Yeah.
Mel Gibson is a very religious guy, and so I see films like Hacksaw Ridge,
Right.
which is about war, and it's actually very violent, but the undertone and the foundation of that film is like very heavily Christian.
Yeah. It's like undeniable. Very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm always looking for those kinds of things too. So I was like, yeah, I
Hmm.
really, and it also makes me wonder, like, how do people who are very, very into their faith, like, how do they view that,
Yeah.
that kind of film like Hacksaw Ridge?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned like kind of like working inside of like a certain box because that kind of seems like to be the biggest handicap with much of like the Christian movie studios of like the ones that I think of most. I don't know if you've seen any of the ones by the Kendrick brothers, but they're I think they're at least one of them is pastors of like a mega church down south somewhere, and they made
Hmm.
movies like Flywheel was their first one, which was just kind of like a project they did at their church, and it kind of did really well. And then they did like Facing the Giants, which is like a football one, and then Courageous, which was like a police one.
Okay, yeah, I
Uh,
know that one.
War Room, and then there's like another one too that I don't remember. But I mean, like you say, like at the core, there's some really good elements, but I feel like they work within the like constraints of the box that they feel like they kind of have to fill. That like there's some really good aspects of the movies that I like, but overall, or not necessarily overall, but in a lot of aspects, they can come across as like kind of preachy and more of like a Sunday morning message rather than like putting the story and the themes like front and center.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I did want to read a little comment here. We have Jared Runner saying, "Howdy, hey Jared, great guy. He's always interacting with us in the live
Yeah,
streams.
I've
Very
seen a
cool
couple
dude."
of yours and the other guys you mentioned live streams. He's always seems to be there.
Yeah, loyal fan. Love you, Jared. All right, so just the first question I had for you was just kind of like quick one, just to kind of get the ball rolling. We already
Hmm.
seem to be having a really good thing going, so
Yeah.
so just a quick one was, do you have a favorite movie of 2021 so far?
So far this year, my favorite movie has probably been Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is kind of like a weird answer because technically it's not a new movie, but at the same time, it's so different than the 2017 version that we got. I feel like it qualifies as like a new movie. It's just so
Yeah, yeah,
different.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm someone who's been, I know like he's a very divisive director, it seems like people either love him or they hate him, but I just really liked from both the filmmaking aspect of seeing such stark differences in the filmmaking style of like it's really from a filmmaking perspective of studying that interesting to see how a different vision can be realized. Like we've really never seen, it's like unprecedented to see anything like this before. So I loved it from like a behind the scenes kind of filmmaking aspect of it. And then I feel like he just does such a cool job with like his visual style and the way he incorporates like themes into his movies and stuff like that. And I was watching a video I said last night about his new Army of the Dead movie that's coming out, and he was talking about. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm really excited for it, but he was
Hmm.
talking about kind of like a recurring theme that Zack Snyder likes to implement in his films is that of like fatherhood and what that means, and that's just like a really cool, fascinating theme to me, just from both my personal perspective of my relationship with my father, but at the same time and like a Christian perspective of like the Father in heaven being God kind of thing. It's a really cool theme to explore, and I think with the story of Superman and Man of Steel that explored really well, and I think he's kind of really had a really cool thread that's kind of gone continually through Man of Steel, BVS, and then now Justice League. So I mean, I I don't have too much hope that we're going to get to see more Justice League movies of his style, but I would be really excited to see it. So that's probably been my favorite movie so far this year.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say the same thing, and I was thinking that too. I was like, well, it's kind of cheating, I guess, since
Yeah,
technically it's not new. But I
yeah.
mean,
It feels kind of
it's
weird putting it on the
definitely,
list, but
yeah, it's definitely new to us, especially for people like myself, and
yeah,
probably you as well, who have been wanting to see this version of the movie
yeah.
since 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I always heard like the rumors of it. I didn't really follow the movement too closely up until like right around the time it actually became official. So I wasn't like
Hmm.
one of the people who was like campaigning for it all around. But I was always curious to kind of see original vision. I just never thought it would actually happen. So I'm just glad we actually got it. But like you said, it's kind of a weird pick for the year. But I feel like we're about to
Hmm.
move into summer movie season where like we're still kind of coming off of all the COVID stuff. So now that things are kind of slowly moving back to normal. I think this summer movie season is going to hit pretty hard, and we're going to have some really, really cool movies coming out. So I'm excited for that. But I mean, up until Justice League, I think my favorite movie before I saw that was Judas and the Black Messiah, which is another weird one because that technically counts as a 2019 one, like Oscar wise and stuff like that, because it was
Hmm.
winning all the awards for the 2020. But it's like, well, we didn't actually come out till 2021, and most people didn't see it till then. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's one I haven't seen yet. I do really want to see it. I just
mm-hmm.
haven't got around to it.
Yeah.
It kind of gives me the vibe of like a more serious version of Black Klansman. I don't know if you saw that one.
I haven't seen that. That's been one of the top ones on my list. One of my friends is like, every time we get together, she's like, "I got to show you Black Klansman." I'm like, "I know."
Yeah, that was a surprise one for me, just because Spike Lee for me is just really hit or miss. He's been around for so
Mhm.
long that I feel like that he's one of those guys that's like really comfortable with his style, so he kind of just puts out whatever. He doesn't really like
Yeah.
care if it's good or not, which is
Hmm.
not a good thing. It's not a good thing in my opinion because he is
Yeah.
really hit or miss. But
Right.
Black Klansman is like one of his films that I've seen that I thought it was just great, and it was
Hmm.
just weird saying that because it's a Spike Lee film.
Yeah. Yeah. Now last year was To Five Bloods of his, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
loved
even get to
that.
watch that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one
I
was
didn't get to
great.
see that yet.
Yeah, that one's on Netflix. That ended up, I think it was on my top 10 list for last year. I really liked that one. It was a really neat blend of kind of war, PTSD, like how all that kind of affects people. And then I thought it did a good job of, racial issues and how that was kind of like addressed and stuff too. So it was a really
Mhm.
neat blend of like the serious drama with kind of like a not really heist movie, but at the same time it had heist elements to it. So
Yeah, yeah. That's what interested me too, like the element of the heist film in with like a war film. I thought that was really unique.
yeah, yeah. I like kind of unconventional combinations in movies where like the new Zack Snyder Army of the Dead movie kind of seems like that. It's like Ocean's 11 meets the zombie apocalypse kind of thing. Like that
Yeah.
concept alone is like I got to see that.
Yeah, for me, it's the what really intrigues me about those kinds of films is the recruitment scenes. Like
Yeah,
I love when like a group of people come together. Like
yeah.
anytime
Like
there's like a
putting a team
recruitment
together.
montage or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like I'll instantly love it
Oh yeah.
just for
Especially when
that
you got
alone.
like something like Ocean's 11 with the cast that they got for that movie. It's so cool.
Hmm. I can't remember what I was in. I had something else to say about the 2021 films. I can't remember that. It's fine.
Yeah. I think
It'll come
the
back to me later.
first. Yeah. What was the first 2021 movie you watched? Do you remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna talk about.
Here.
What's that?
I said we're on the same wavelength here, thinking alike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I that was kind of the thing I was going to discuss was that I don't really remember what the first film was I watched in 2021, and even like I think that's just stemming from last year where just everything
Hmm.
got canceled, and I was gonna, I had plans to watch all these different films that I
Yeah.
didn't get to watch. So I honestly don't even think I could have even like I was watching it. I thought it was funny, but I watched a lot of YouTubers like putting like together like top tens of 2020, and I was like,
Hmm.
I didn't even watch enough. I was like, I don't even think
Yeah.
enough films came out for
I
even
know.
anyone to do that. Like,
I had those
like what's
feelings.
on
I
your
was
list?
worried.
Like Tenet's on the list. Like, okay, that's like on everyone's list because that's like the only
Yeah.
thing that came out.
Yeah. Yeah. When we got to like, it was like June or July. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna have a top 10 list. I don't even
Yeah,
know
I
if 10
don't
movies
even.
have come out this year.
I tried. I think I tried jotting some down. I think the only
Hmm.
ones I got down were like Fat Man with Mel
Hmm.
Gibson. I really love that movie.
That was fun. Yeah.
That I really love. Just the concept. That's one of those films that were just the concept alone. I
Yeah.
just thought it was like genius. I was like,
Yeah.
why has no one thought of this before?
Yeah. Just based on the concept, you're like, okay, I at least got to see what this is.
Yeah, like that's one of those movies that I think if it came out like in the 90s or the 80s, it would have been huge.
Oh yeah, it would be like a classic today.
Hmm.
I
That's
feel
one
like
of
it
the
had
videos I
like
kind of
Batman
have.
status or something.
Yeah, that's one of the videos I kind of have an idea of doing. Is
Hmm.
like recently released films that really should have been made like in the 90s or 80s, and if they
Yeah,
had
kind of
been
like a yeah, like a
like
throwback.
yeah like Gemini Man.
Hmm.
Gemini Man got a lot of hate, but I mean honestly, looking at it, if this was made like in the 90s when Will Smith was like in his prime, this movie
Hmm.
would have been huge. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah. So Fat Man was on the list. Love and Monsters was on there,
Oh yeah, that was a great one.
and I can't remember what else. I think those are like the only two that really stood out to me.
Hmm.
All right. So another question I wanted to ask you is besides Blu-rays and like physical media and stuff, is there anything else you collect?
That's my main thing. Like I was very intentional of not getting into the Funko Pop collecting because I felt like that was a very slippery slope.
Hmm.
And I knew as soon as I started, I would just dive right in. So I do have some Funkos, but I've been very intentional about only getting ones that I like really want, and that's about it. Like I have Ellen Ripley from the Alien movies because those are some of my favorite movies. I have a John Wick one, and I have a couple from How I Met Your Mother. So like that's about
Hmm.
it. So I don't really collect those. I mean, I kind of collect pretty much anything Lord of the Rings that I can find because those are my favorite movies. I'm not as much into the books, but I do collect like the official movie guides and stuff like that for the my dog's growling. There's a noise. I collect like the movie guides and like a few devotionals for Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. I just find all this stuff really cool. I have like a Middle Earth atlas and stuff. So I like finding the like more obscure like Lord of the Rings stuff that's kind of hard to find.
Hmm.
And like we're kind of far enough removed from those original movies coming out that it's actually like harder to find those kinds of things. So I think it's kind
Yeah.
of fun to like, kind of find stuff that's kind of hard to find. So I'd say movies is the main thing I collect. There's a few other random things here and there, but
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of Funkos, and those I got as gifts.
mm-hmm.
I have a couple Lord of the Rings ones. Like I have a Frodo one, and
Yeah,
I have some Duck Dynasty ones.
yeah.
Yes, I really love Duck Dynasty. That show's
Oh yeah,
awesome.
that was a
I think
great
it's
show.
hilarious. And
Yeah.
yeah, my nephew got me like a couple Funko Pops from Duck Dynasty and Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Think I opened them. I opened them and I put them up on the shelf. Do you have yours in the box still, or are they out?
No, I opened mine. I know I've seen Sean Chandler. I don't know if you watch his channel. He likes to keep all his in the box because he likes like the neatness of it. But I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
like have that thing out and look at it.
Yeah, yeah. I used to watch. I think I maybe only watched like maybe one Funko Pop channel, but I used to watch a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just I don't know, just because I wanted to. I try to like watch different types of YouTubers and different types of
Yeah.
content, just so I don't get bored.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was telling the other guys in the live stream is that I don't watch a ton of physical media collectors,
Mm-hmm.
and that is because I can't like restrict myself to just one certain type of video. Like
Yeah.
besides those guys and you and a few other people, I
Mm-hmm.
don't watch very many other YouTubers that do what we do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of I think people find that kind of weird, but it's I don't know. That's just kind of the thing I'm into. I also don't watch it. Like when people tell me like, "Oh, do you watch this person or this person?" It's like most likely
Mm-hmm.
not.
Yeah.
If they're above a certain amount of subscribers, I don't watch them
Yeah.
because
I've heard you
I
say that
really
before
like
in a live
to yeah
stream.
yeah I really like to support smaller YouTubers and people that I think are just kind of doing something different, like yourself
Yeah.
and other
Mm-hmm.
people. I like to support those people because if I'm being honest, like a lot of those bigger YouTubers, they're cool and all, but do they really care about their audience as much as someone on a smaller level?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where I'll try to start a conversation with them or ask them a question, and
Yeah.
I get like no response. And most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
like those guys don't answer any of their comments, which I find a
Yeah.
little troubling, because I
Yeah.
try to answer every
Yeah.
single
That's
person.
one cool thing I think with smaller channels is like you feel like you can actually like communicate with the post and stuff like that and with the
Hmm.
video. Like you can actually like interact with it, have a conversation. Like they all like you say, like the bigger YouTubers, they always say like, oh, jump down in the comments, but it's more of a like engagement kind of stuff where like
Yeah.
they can only be a part of so many of the chats that are down there when it's thousands of comments. But like in
Hmm.
our case, where you only got a few hundred subscribers and you're only going to get 10, 15, 20 comments on a video, you can actually like give a personal response to each of those comments and have a conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, that's kind of the other thing too is yeah, they do feel a little bit more personable. You feel like this is someone you could talk to and have a conversation with, and they'll actually, have something to say back to you rather than just some
Mm-hmm.
kind of like copy and paste response. Thanks for watching
Yeah.
the video. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like
Or like
that.
they'll just heart your comment and that's it or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's kind of cool because that's kind of why that's another thing why I wanted to do live streams is kind of not necessarily gauge who I think is a really great person, but also just kind of get to know people on a better and a more personal level. Um,
Yeah.
and that also shows too, like how it lets me know also who when I'm reaching out to people, like who I think I can still support and not support in a way, because there have been people. I mean, I try to stay pretty positive, but I have had like negative run-ins with YouTubers and stuff, and it's kind of disheartening because I feel like we should all kind of be supporting each other, but there are some people that kind of have an ego thing. So that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
questions I wanted to ask you was your channel is like very positive. So you seem like a very positive person, which is what I like about you.
Yeah.
But have you ever had any kind of like negative run-in with another YouTuber? You don't have to say any names.
I don't think so. I mean, like you say, when it comes to like the bigger channels, you're lucky to get a response. So there's been like a couple of YouTubers where they'll put out there that they want you to like, give recommendations on like, like I like a couple channels that are like, are into like 4K like TVs and the technology that goes into it and whatnot. So like you might reach out to them with like a question of like, hey, I think this would be an interesting video, or what are your thoughts on this product or whatever, and you're lucky to get a response. So I mean, there's been like I mentioned Sean Chandler a few times just because he's probably one of the bigger channels that I still enjoy watching most of his videos. And on the handful of times I've reached out to him, even though he's 100,000 plus subscribers, I think he's up to like 120,000 now. Every time I've reached out to him, whether it's a comment on his Facebook page or messaged him on Instagram, he's always messaged me back. So that's really cool that like he's able to maintain that. But there's been a few YouTubers that just you just never hear back from. But I've kind of the past few months tried to do better at engaging in general because they say it helps boost your own channel if you're more engaging on other channels and stuff like that. So for a long time I was typically the person who would just watch the video and leave, but I've tried to make more of an effort to like, especially with the smaller channels where I can actually have conversations with either the content creator or other subscribers, like actually putting myself out there of comments and questions and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. That's I try to do that as well. Just kind of look up different people, different kind of up and coming people, and just engage their channels. Kind of, I always try to like write comments on other smaller YouTubers too that are just starting out, just to kind of get their help, get their stuff out there.
Yeah, just to be
And
like
there are those times where like though even those people won't even respond to me, and I'm like, oh okay, like all right, like and it's kind of weird, but
yeah, my goal is for I have no idea how big I'll get, but I mean, as long as I can, I want to be able to respond to every comment again, as long as it's not like a spam comment or something like that. I'll just delete that. But any like genuine comment where someone actually like, even if they just say like, hey, hi, or a great video or something, give some kind of meaningful response to it, just so they know like if they took the time to put a comment out there for me, it's the least I can do to actually respond and try and start a conversation with them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that I try to do as well. Because like, and I think that kind of shows the type of person that they might be, whether they're really genuine about what they're doing, or if they're really just doing it for the views and the subscribers. Like I myself, if I ever get to a point where I'm as big as some other people, I don't think I'll ever, I would never be that person, because I don't do this for the views and the subscribers. I do it because it's more of on the hobby side, and I like doing it. I very much enjoy making these types of videos that I do.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of time and effort into them, so I really enjoy it.
Yeah. I'd say maybe sometime after the first like 6 months, maybe a year and a half after I started the channel, I kind of fell into a pattern of like every once in a while trying to put a video out there that would like not necessarily like a clickbait type video, but like one that I had a feeling and put the effort in to try and make it more like engaging or something that would kind of blow up a little more. And I've just kind of like moved on from that perspective of like, YouTube is just so big these days. It's so hard to make it in any kind of way anyways. Like I just want to enjoy the ride, make stuff that I'm going to enjoy, and hopefully people that subscribe enjoy as well. So I think it's a much healthier mindset than, working yourself up trying to just make the next best thing, where like do something that you're proud of, but don't necessarily try to, just make something that's going to blow up just for the views for no actual significant reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of one of the things I talked about last time was I already know for a fact I can put out certain types of videos that I know will get views, because I know people that do the exact same thing.
Right.
And I watch them because I support them, and it's, you know, I know the type of person that they are, and that's what they're going for, and I respect that because they're upfront with it.
Yeah.
And you know, they're just like, oh, I'm just doing this for the views or whatever. That's totally fine. I respect that because you're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't do that because that's just not me, you know.
Yeah.
I could never do stuff that I know I'm not going to like, because that's the other thing too. I know it could get a lot of views, but I personally will hate the video,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you know, and it'll just like kill me, you know,
Yeah.
morally, just to, you know, put out videos that I know I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to, yeah, I'd rather put out a video that I feel like I did a good job on or even a great job on and have it only get, you know, some of the videos that I put out that I feel like I put like some of the hardest work into, they only get like 20, 30 views. And then some of the ones that you're like, I'm gonna just slap this together, you know, it ends up with, you know, however many views, and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense anyway, so let's just put stuff out that I'm proud of, and at least, you know, at least I can enjoy going back and rewatching it.
hmm I don't watch my videos after I put them out. I think I'll
Yeah.
watch them. I'll watch them one way through at the end when I'm
Hmm.
done editing, just in case I, you
Yeah.
know, miss anything. After that, I don't watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind rewatching my stuff. It's funny. I find myself rewatching my videos a few times. Most of the time when I do, it's because I'm showing them to other people, and so it's kind of
hmm
cool to watch it from that point of view because I feel like you look at it differently. Where like when you're editing your video and you're watching it from, you know, like a creator point of view. But when you're like showing your video to someone or in a different mindset, like you're watching it from more the viewer's perspective. So like you can kind of pick up on things of like, you know, I could have done this better, could have made this
Yeah,
edit a little better here and there. So that's kind of how I look at it.
yeah. That's one of the reasons why I don't watch it, because I'm gonna see. I'm a perfectionist. So if I
Yeah,
see something that I'm like, I should have done better, I'm gonna want to delete
yeah,
that video.
yeah,
There
yeah. There's
are
been a few
actually,
times I'm showing a video
yeah.
and like I forgot to like cut out like a cough or like I say something twice and I just missed it in the edit and I'm like, dang it. So like I definitely
Yeah.
could go through that too.
There actually is one I do plan on redoing. I already like deleted it, I think, or I think I just like privated it. But I
Hmm.
will eventually redo it because it's one of those videos that I think that I really enjoyed doing,
Hmm.
but it just didn't come out the way I wanted it. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna redo it. I just
Hmm.
don't know when though.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. Yeah, there's a couple questions in here I just wanted to get through, just cause. Yeah.
Cool.
Or just comments. Jared says the only new movie I've watched this year is The Mitchells versus the Machines. I still need to watch that.
Same here. I've heard it's great. Some people said it's like the best movie of the year so far. My wife wants to see it too. We're on basically opposite schedules, so we just got to find the time to sit down and do it. But I've
hmm
heard it's excellent.
Yeah, the I hear a lot of praise for the animation.
Hmm.
Um, my brother is actually he was watching it when I went into his room. My brother lives with me.
Hmm.
I went into his room to grab something, and he was watching it, and I stopped watching it because I was like, "Oh no, I haven't seen this yet. I don't want to watch it."
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
saw a little bit of it, and the animation I think looked really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would expect so, especially coming from the same guys who did Into the Spider-Verse, because that
hmm
was some really groundbreaking animation. So, and then the Lego movie too. They did the first Lego movie.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we have Arius Movie says, "Hi, my American friends." Hey, Arius, I haven't talked to you in a while. Very cool guy. Support. Yep, he is from France. All his videos are in French. I watch a lot of his videos. He has like really cool collection of stuff, but all his videos are
Yeah,
in French, so I have no idea what he's saying, but his
but it's
content's
good
awesome.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a couple subscribers from out in Europe that I know of.
that's actually the like majority of my subscribers are
Hmm.
from the UK and stuff.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't really know how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Like most of mine, I would say, are in the U.S. and then I say I have a couple in Europe, and I probably have a few in Mexico too, because my wife and I have done some mission work down there, and so we have a
hmm
lot of friends down in Mexico though. So I know I have at least a few people that are from Mexico who watch my channel.
Yeah, yeah. I think some of them have to be from uh one of my uh one of my buddies, another YouTuber, Kermit's Ghost. he shouted me out in a video once and got me a bunch of subscribers. So thank you to him.
Yeah.
And that's probably what. But even before that, like I noticed that a lot of the subscribers I had are from the UK. So a lot of times when I do drop a video, it does take a little while for the views to
Right.
kind of get in there, just
For the
because
time
we're
frames.
on different time zones.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Like you said, it's a chance to be able to kind of get to know people you wouldn't have met otherwise.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Plus, I feel
So
like outside the U.S., they get way cooler collector's editions of movies and
they
stuff
they
than we do.
do. I'm constantly telling. I'm also subscribed to a few UK YouTubers. I'm always constantly talking to them about like how they always get like the best like slip covers and
Oh
editions,
yeah.
and he's it's Kermit's ghost. His name's Alan. He's always telling me the same. Like, no, you guys get all the good stuff. I'm like, no, you guys get the good stuff.
Yeah, we get some cool stuff, but I feel like they get the best stuff. Sometimes I'm tempted to like, even though like not everything's region free, so like sometimes I'm tempted to like buy, like he's like a UK edition of something and just pop my American version disc into the case or something, just so I can have
Yeah,
it.
definitely. That's why a lot of my steelbooks that I collect. That's kind of like the
Hmm.
biggest thing that I collect is steelbooks.
Hmm.
And I'd say about 90% of my steelbooks are imports, like either from the UK or
Yeah.
Germany. I got a lot of stuff from Germany. Germany's
Hmm.
got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Germany, Spain, Italy, France, like
Hmm.
that's where most of my steelbooks come from.
Yeah.
Because I think their artwork looks way better than we do. We get
Yeah.
like kind of okay
Just get
artwork.
like the normal cookie cutter stuff for the most part.
Yeah. But people from the UK also really love that. Like, oh, I really love this. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Yours is better.
Yeah. I feel like us is more hit or miss, where they have just so many solid hits of cool stuff.
Definitely. Okay. So I'm just running through these questions. I already asked that. Oh, and speaking of while we're on the subject of like our own YouTube channels and stuff, do you particularly have a favorite video of yours?
Um, I don't know if I have a favorite video, but I would say the favorite opening I did for a video was last year in October. I was doing kind of a series where I was watching some classic horror movies that I'd never seen before, and one of
Mm-hmm.
them was the original Halloween. And I'm like super proud of the opening that I did for that video. Like every few months, I go back and just watch the opening to that video. So it has the opening has almost nothing to do with the movie. It's just me cooking up a quesadilla on the stove. But I just really
Oh,
liked
okay,
like
yeah,
the cool
yeah,
shots and the cool shots
yeah.
and
I
editing
remember
that I
that
came
one.
up with for it. I just wanted to do something different and creative for it. And so I just kind of there was no planning. I just kind of slapped it together. But in the end, I think it turned out really cool. So I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite openings. I mean, I enjoy doing a lot of like the collection videos, probably the most, because it's just kind of me talking about the movies and whatever comes to mind is what I say. So they're kind of the less structured ones. So kind of like we've talked about of like the live streams being very like just a flowing conversation and laid back. So I enjoy those because you're just kind of talking about whatever comes to mind.
Hmm. Yeah, those types of videos where you like really liked an intro or something you did in it
Hmm.
are the only ones that I do watch again, just because
Hmm.
I usually just skip over to that part because
Yeah.
in my videos I do a lot of like edits that I make myself, and or I just kind of like slap like memes or different videos together
Yeah.
that I think fit what I'm talking about, and I think it's really funny and it makes me laugh. But my favorites are the ones that I actually do myself, that I actually edit
Hmm.
myself on my editing software.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones I usually end up kind of revisiting a lot, just because I think
Hmm.
it's like I think they're pretty stupid, but a lot of
Yeah.
people really like them. Those are the,
Yeah.
those are the biggest comments that I get that I really love, is
Hmm.
when people are like, "Oh, I love this edit you did. It's really funny."
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just keep doing those.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. The
have like
ones I probably go back and watch the most of my own are, like you said, the ones I usually like kind of did a fun video edit. And I tend to go back and rewatch my like monthly haul videos a lot, just because I
mhm,
kind of like, to me it's kind of like walking down memory lane of looking at what I picked up throughout the year, throughout the month, that kind of thing.
yeah. All right. So yeah, and then the follow up question to that is, well, I kind of answered that myself. I was going to ask you if you have a favorite video of mine. For me,
Um,
mine, yours was the one where you're talking about like the Christian themed films and
yeah.
how Ragamuffin is just so good. I think
Hmm.
that's like one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I've almost thought about like in a way, like not necessarily like remaking that video, but kind of like an update on it almost of like
Hmm.
just kind of like with the kind of what I've learned and the growth that I've gone through over the past few years, because that was one of the first videos I posted. So like just kind of like I mean I've even considered just like doing a video of me rewatching that video and like kind of talking about like some of the things that might maybe like how my opinion might have changed or some of the things that are the same. So like I don't know, I'd like to kind of either revisit that video or revisit that movie in some kind of way for the channel at
Hmm.
some point. I'm not sure exactly what it would look like, but it's been something that's kind of like been in the back of my mind for a few months or so now. But I don't know my favorite video of yours that you've done, but I did double check last night because I was curious what the first video of yours that I watched was. Um, and it was the one that you posted that said, movies I thought I would hate but ended up loving.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I ended up like rewatching part of it again last night too, and I was like, yeah, that was a cool one because I like movies that like kind of subvert your expectations, and I felt like that was a really to me that was an intriguing way of wording it in the title of like movies I thought I would hate but ended up loving instead of just like movies that surprised me or whatever. I thought it was a cool way of wording
Yeah.
it, and I remember like you had just subscribed to my channel and I was like every time someone subscribes to my channel I always check to see if they do content as well
Hmm.
because it's just an opportunity to kind of get to know someone more. So I remember you subscribed and put a couple comments in my video, so I checked it out and like scrolled through all your videos kind of back towards the beginning, and that was the one that grabbed my eye the most, so that was the first one that I clicked on and watched.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the ones I'm most proud of. Also, the other one I think would be like my favorite. It's like a tie between directors you're not allowed to hate, because
Mm-hmm.
that one got a lot of traction and it got the result. That was, I think that's like one of my one and only like clickbaity kind of
Yeah.
videos,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that one. I did that one on purpose because I knew it would make some people mad, but I also knew it would make a lot of people laugh.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to do a part two, but I don't know because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you forgot this guy," or "What about this
Mm-hmm.
guy or this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do a part two," but I still don't know if I can do one because that was supposed to be like a one-off
Yeah.
where I was just kind of tired of people talking about like I just got tired of people talking negatively to other people because they don't like Christopher
Right.
Nolan, or you
Mm-hmm.
don't like Zack Snyder, you don't like Tarantino. It's like, why does that matter? Like,
Yeah. Why are you just
you're
not allowed to hate them or
yeah, yeah,
whatever?
that, and like it's just so weird just because like they have
Yeah.
a very big following, and
Mm-hmm. Well, I
they
think
honestly.
it's an interesting conversation to pose. So.
Mhm. Yeah, and that video itself is one of my favorites because it's satirical.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be taken serious at all, but a
Right.
lot of people did take it serious.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, so you don't, because I make a lot of jokes about like Tarantino and his love for the N word, and
Mm-hmm.
Nolan and stuff like that, and Zack Snyder for his slow motion and stuff.
Right.
But a lot of people took it serious and stuff, but it wasn't supposed to be serious. It's just supposed to be like
Yeah.
talking about these things about these directors that they have a
Mm-hmm.
kind of obsession with, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite ones, just because the people that got it, I love that people got that it was satirical, and then other people
Mm-hmm.
didn't get it.
Yeah.
That's why I love the mix of it. Not that it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And my other favorite, the other one, I think has to be, Does Anyone Remember Surf Ninjas?
Mm-hmm. Oh
That
yeah, I've
one,
watched that one.
yeah, that one is because I had a lot of fun editing that one together, and it was kind of like my very first kind of movie review in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't like movie reviews, but I want to talk about certain films, and that was my way of kind of, if I'm gonna do a movie review, I guess it has to be in a certain way where it's like
Mm-hmm.
funny or something like that. That's why Fat Man is the way it is, and it's titled the way it is, because
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be a movie review. It's kind of just like my little essay. I think of it more as like a video essay.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, Surf Ninjas was my favorite one because I had a lot of fun doing it, and also because I got some recognition from one of the actors in the film. he actually commented on my post, and like I messaged him and stuff about on Instagram about the video I did, and he really enjoyed it. So I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So even if that video doesn't have like a ton of views, the fact that an actor from that video like showed appreciation, it's like, hey, that was really cool. That's why that's probably one of my favorite videos that I've done.
Yeah. That reminds me. That was one of the first like hugely encouraging things for me when I started my channel. I don't remember if I ended up putting it in the comments or not, but we're talking about the Ragamuffin Christian movie video that I did. That was like one of the first videos I did, and after like I woke up the next morning after I posted it, and the video had like 120 views or something, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then somebody, based on a true story of a musician who passed away back in the 90s, and someone messaged me on Facebook who knew the guy that the movie was based off of, and he was friends with him, and he's friends with the people who made the movie, like the production company, whatever, and that he had kind of passed it around with their kind of group of people, and it turned out that the director of the movie ended up watching my video on it and like loved it. So I was like, that just like blew my mind that like I literally just started making videos on YouTube. I've posted like 3 videos, and it just so happened that one of them happened to be seen by the director of the movie I was talking about. I was like, that was crazy to me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also get that feeling when, like different YouTubers that I watch will comment on, like reply to one of my comments, and or just say like, or just let me know like. I mostly get a lot of that on Instagram. They'll message me and be like, "Oh, hey, I watched this video of yours. I thought it was really cool." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah, just kind of like taking the extra effort.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. So I really like that feeling. That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
That knowing that other content creators like your stuff. Because me personally, I kind of don't think my videos are that good. But I have fun with them.
Yeah.
That's it. That's another thing I kind of wanted to ask you about was, actually, this question is going to tie into like some other stuff. But the initial thing I wanted to talk to you was, as a Christian, and I don't know how deep that goes for you, but when you watch content like my stuff, like if you watch it like stuff, do you how do I say this? Does it ever put you off? Like, because like a lot of my videos, they're not exactly like family friendly. I have a lot of colorful language, and some of the stuff I put in there is like not exactly PG and stuff. So like as a Christian dude, does that kind of like deter you from watching that kind of content, or do you just not mind?
No, it doesn't necessarily bother me, because I mean, I grew up in a Christian home. I was raised, both my parents were Christian, and all my siblings, we went to church every Sunday, that kind of thing. So it's been a part of my life for my whole life. But I mean, we were never, and for lack of a better word, like sheltered from like the ways of the world and stuff like that. Like we grew up watching, movies and stuff like that. My parents were very mindful of like, watching, age appropriate stuff for what ages I was. But it's never put me off in like any content. Like, I mean, you've probably seen from like, the movies I show and stuff, like not every movie I watch is, edifying to God and all that kind of stuff. But I always think it's cool to branch out and check out that kind of stuff, because, we're not here to just kind of live our own little bubbled life through and then die and go up to heaven one day. Like we're supposed to like, get to know people, take time to get to know people, become friends. And like, I have plenty of people who I know who, it's cool when you don't share the same beliefs as people, that you get to kind of look at life from a different perspective, and it brings up different conversations and stuff that you never would have had before. Where like in our case, like you and I never would have met if it weren't for our channels and our kind of interest in what each other's doing for our content and stuff like that. So it brings up cool conversations, different relationships and friendships that never would have happened otherwise. So I think it's cool to kind of like you said, I feel like I try to have an open mind when it comes to the movies I watch, the content of like YouTubers and stuff that I watch. So it's neat to explore those areas, there's definitely, you definitely need to be mindful of certain things of like, there's certain things I'll draw the line with, but being open to exploring different things that you maybe wouldn't have naturally gone down the path of, but it's cool to look at those things from a different perspective and see what you can learn from it.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest thing that intrigues me about you and your channel, and why I think your content and your channel is so great, is when I was on, that kick of watching different types of YouTubers in that have Christian based content.
Yeah.
I would see that the majority of it was, very black and white. It's either this is right and this is wrong. And I don't talk about my own beliefs on my channel, because I don't think that's the place for it. Like, my channel is just more for like entertainment, and also because I don't know who I'm going to offend. I try to, even with the jokes and the colorful language that I have in my videos, I try not to do that stuff, but it's really more for dramatic effect, like just for effect. But even when I do have certain types of videos like that I interject into my own, I try to make it to where, it's not going to offend anyone. It's funny, and it may have like, vulgar language or whatever, but it's all in the name of fun and comedy. And I don't, I try to, make sure I'm not offending anyone.
Yeah.
But even, like with my own personal beliefs, I grew up, like my family's very Catholic. I grew up in a very, very Catholic home, but I don't, I don't consider myself one, just because as I grew up and my parents letting me kind of experience different things and different ways of life, and going to school and studying on my own different religions of the world. I came to find that I kind of agree with pretty much every base of faith. I agree with little things from everyone, and I don't I don't agree 100% with anyone else. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like, because of knowing how different people are, I'm like, I don't know if I can, I guess, subscribe to one certain belief, because I agree with a lot of people. I think everyone has a point. Like, oh, it's like, okay, yeah, you got a point there, you got a point there.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think it's important for, no matter what kind of like religious background you have, to ask questions like about your own faith and other faiths, because I think there's a lot of more, like we've talked about, like open-mindedness and things that you can learn from that point of view. Like, don't just go in and, because of, like, I know it's kind of become a big thing recently, it seems like, in, at least from what I'm exposed to, is mostly the Christian circles, of that idea of a lot of this current generation is kind of like growing up and being like, well, I just don't believe these things anymore, or it was always very like cookie cutter in a certain way for me, and they just want to, like, you kind of go out and explore different things. And I think it's important to question your faith no matter what kind of religious background you have, because I think eventually whatever belief you fall back down to, you're going to be stronger in that faith. Like for me, I'm not a perfect Christian, but I try to ask the difficult questions and be willing to, deal with more difficult things, because I think in the end, for me personally, God's going to bring it around, just make it stronger for me in my kind of pillars of faith and what I believe in. And like tying it back to like a filmmaking perspective of, like, if I just went around only watching, the standard whatever Christian movie is around for that time, I'm only going to have so much of an understanding of, because I mean, at its core, movies are kind of very much kind of a commentary on what's happening in the world, whether it's current, past, or future. And I think watching very traditional Christian movies is only going to give you one certain mindset. Where me, like, I have all these movies back here, majority of them are definitely not Christian films and don't have a Christian point of view, but me being willing to look at those different perspectives, point of views, and people, whether it's the director, the actor, the characters that are written, that kind of thing, it helps me to kind of open up my mind to what's out there in the world, because I want to be a part of it, and I want to kind of learn what there is to learn, and I think it makes me more of a well-versed person, I guess you can say.
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of where I find myself in
Hmm.
that aspect. Is yeah, even though I did grow up with a certain belief system, I still do. It's gonna come around. Like you were talking about.
Hmm.
Eventually, I'll come back to it, and and I'll realize that this is what what was in my heart the whole time.
Hmm. Yeah.
But for right now, in the space that I'm at, I'm really more into getting to know people and
Hmm.
getting to know, different point of views, different opinions, and just kind of learning to, I guess, understand everyone.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of one of my biggest things is just trying to understand everyone. Maybe,
Mhm.
that's why I've never had any kind of, hatred towards anyone, based on their backgrounds or
Yeah.
what have you. I've never
Hmm.
had any hate towards anyone just because I've always tried to understand. That my parents kind
Hmm.
of like instilled that into me is, everyone's different. Me growing up in a very mixed neighborhood, like
Hmm.
we were the only Native Americans there, and my neighbors were white. My neighbors across from me were black. Like everyone got along. So
Yeah.
I've always understood that everyone's different. Everyone has different
Hmm.
ways of living and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Me growing
I've
up,
always really appreciated that.
I was very much in like a small, and I grew up in the New England area, and it was a very small kind of like, normal New England country town, and there wasn't a ton of diversity. I didn't start being exposed to more diversity until I went to high school, because it was like a district school, so multiple towns were in it. And then it wasn't really until I went to college and moved out to Ohio that I was really more exposed to different like ethnic backgrounds and religious backgrounds and stuff like that. Like even I attended a Christian university, and I feel like I tell people one of the first things you learn going to a Christian university is not every Christian is Christian. Or not everyone at a Christian university is Christian. Like people come in with so many different backgrounds, and they're like we've talked about, like it's so cool to just kind of expose yourself and open up your mind to all these different backgrounds and beliefs, and be like you said, you just to be able to learn to understand people and where they came from. I think it helps make us better people, and for myself it helps me in my own faith too.
Hmm. Yeah, because we have here in Arizona up north, we have Grand Canyon University.
Hmm.
It's a Christian school,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I've seen their
if
YouTube
you
ads.
yeah if you if you look at like the area that it's in, like you
Yeah.
would never that it doesn't, I guess it doesn't fit, but it's like, oh, that's because you're gonna get a lot of different types of people there, which it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just like smack dab right in the middle of this like town
Hmm.
that doesn't really have. I mean, they're really now they're just starting to get a lot of diversity up there because
Hmm.
there's a ton of like the last time I was up there, there was a lot more Native Americans there.
Yeah.
um I remember being young, and it's in Flagstaff, so I remember when we used to go up there like every summer just kind of get away from the heat.
Hmm.
um we'd be like the only people like of any color up there, and now it's just so everything's so diverse. That's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
You can see like in just that one little part of the city, there's just like so much different diversity because right in the middle you
Hmm.
have the Christian university, and then everywhere else you have all different kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never had the opportunity to travel out that far west. The furthest I've been is like Texas, and that's just been for like a day or two here and there. So I'd love to someday be able to travel out west and see, because I mean, America's huge. There's so much diversity in the culture that I'd love to expose myself to.
Hmm. For me, it's definitely like the South. I really would want to check out like Louisiana and stuff like that, mostly
Hmm.
for the food.
Yeah.
That should be like the driving force for
Yeah.
diversity is food.
Yeah.
Like here you can get like any type of food there is, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. It's like just do
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Anytime I go to Mexico, because we used to go like once a year up until COVID hit, for a mission trip every year for a couple months, and I hated leaving that food. It was so good.
Oh, so we have another comment from Platix2. Glad to make the live stream. How's it
Hey, I
going,
know
Platix
him.
2? Awesome. Yeah. He's got a lot of really great content.
Yeah, he
Also, I'm
does.
really sorry to anyone in the comments if I'm taking a while to kind of read your comment. It's it's just because I apologize in advance. I'm gonna try to get all these comments. But yes, I acknowledge that you're all here and thank you for watching. But this is kind
I
of how it goes
appreciate
in
it.
these live streams. Like we just get into great conversation.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, Planet
right,
X2 is a
so
cool guy. He got me a cool Lord of the Rings movie, or not a movie, like a kind of documentary about J.R. Tolkien at the end of last year. He found it at a Dollar Tree, sent it out to me along with a Spaceballs movie.
no, Spaceballs. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's like my wife's
Yeah.
favorite movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but I grew up on that one. That's a funny one.
Hmm. Mel Brooks. Yeah, that guy is like that guy is. I mean, I don't love all of his films, but I
Mhm.
truly respect the stuff that he does because I
Oh
kind of
yeah.
think of myself as. I mean, he just kind of does films that kind of push the envelope. Like if you watch
Hmm.
Blazing Saddles, like
Oh
when
yeah.
that came out, that was like insane. A lot of people
Yeah.
just didn't get it. They were like, "What is
Hmm.
this?" You know, and that's kind of how I think of myself when it comes to videos and stuff that I watch, and not how I am as a person, but sometimes like I do like to push the envelope of what is the envelope of controversy because
Hmm.
I like to get people to react and to talk about things. Like when
Yeah.
I was in school, when I was in college, we had this. I took this class on. I studied psychology, so I was in this class where we were learning about like diversity and things like that. But everyone was so afraid to say anything. Like
Yeah.
no one wanted to offend anyone
Right.
else, which is
Yeah.
fine. But
Hmm.
that's not what we're there for. We're there for we're there to learn different things about each other. And if everyone's so afraid to
Yeah.
speak, then
Yeah.
we're not gonna get
Yeah.
anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
We're
You got to
definitely
be
not
willing to
getting anywhere.
ask those
So
tough questions. Like,
yeah, so
it's in
that's
an environment where you can actually do that. So, like, don't be afraid to do so. Yeah,
yeah.
Mel Brooks, he wasn't afraid to offend anybody.
Hmm. And that's kind of how I think of myself is, which is why in a lot of my videos I do kind of throw in some weird stuff in there because I want to get a reaction out of people. That's kind
Yeah.
of the thing is that's what I learned in school is studying psychology and sociology and stuff like that is and philosophy is you know we need to question everything and
Hmm.
kind of test the limits of stuff, which is what I
Yeah.
try to do a lot in my own personal life. And
Hmm.
it does offend people every once in a while. I do offend
Yeah.
people, but that's I don't mean it in a way of like I'm doing it to get a response out of you. I'm doing
Yeah.
it so we can ask those
Yeah.
questions, to get over certain things.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Like I
definitely a fine
myself,
line of
yeah,
offense and just triggering a response just to like initiate that conversation. Like you said,
hmm
you do it in a genuine way where like it could come across as offensive, but that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because you actually want to have a conversation.
yeah. Like I myself, I'm Native American, but I make fun of Native American culture all of the time
Hmm.
because it makes people. I use comedy as a way of like getting people to loosen up. Like I myself, I know a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about like my own culture and stuff like that because
Hmm.
even though where I live there are a lot of different tribes of Native Americans, they
Hmm.
don't get off of their own land a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, I never grew up on a reservation. I grew up in the city.
Okay.
So a lot of the time, I was really the only Native American person that people had ever met,
Hmm.
and they would always want to ask questions, and I felt uncomfortable. I remember being younger and just feeling very uncomfortable because of the way they would ask
Yeah.
and like, oh, do Native Americans do this or do they do this? And it felt very weird and like, kind of intrusive.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I would make a joke about it,
Hmm.
based on, racial stereotypes. I would make a joke about it and then people would laugh and be like, oh, okay. So then they would, be more open
Yeah.
to asking questions.
Hmm.
So I still
Yeah.
kind
You
of
just
do
gotta
that with
break the
my own
ice.
race. I still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it always ends up being, very fun to do.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the, I'd say, driving forces for my channel, especially when it comes to the fall. I try to do kind of like a recurring Halloween theme of talking about the kinds of movies that are typically kind of taboo for the Christian realm of like, you know, slasher movies, horror movies, that kind of thing, because it's become such a taboo thing that we're not really supposed to talk about. But it's like, I have a friend who went to film school and is kind of doing some stuff. He made a movie and stuff, but he said he feels like the biggest opportunity for Christian filmmakers, he thinks, would be within the horror genre, because it's so close to the Christian faith. But for some reason it's become taboo that we're just not supposed to watch that kind of stuff, not supposed to associate with it, not supposed to make it. But I feel like that's some of the stuff that, like, for me personally, has helped to cement certain beliefs that I have, and helps me to ask some of like the best questions that are going to make me, you know, stronger in my faith. Like, I don't know if you've watched the Netflix horror series Haunting of Hill House that came out a few years ago.
Yeah, like, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite limited series. I love Mike Flanagan, and like I just loved that series and like how it approached the idea of like both family and like past trauma from like childhood. Like I had a good healthy childhood. Like I didn't deal with all that kind of stuff, but I think it really asks questions in a really cool way that makes for some great conversations when it comes to past trauma coming with you into adulthood, and how we kind of carry that burden into our adult lives, and how it affects both our familial and friendship relationships. So I think that series, especially for any circle really, but especially for Christians, like, yeah, it's a straight up like horror series that's like haunted house kind of thing, but I think it can help us to ask some really good questions to drive some cool conversations.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, I've always found that kind of odd. Like my mom, like I said, my mom is a very, very devout Catholic, but she loves horror movies.
Yeah.
Because, and especially the ones that have to deal with like, I mean, I wouldn't say she loves them, but she's entertained by the ones with like that have to do with like demons and stuff like that. Because in the end, when you look at it, fundamentally the you know, like it's the priests or the religious practices that end up beating it. So she'd never seen what was wrong about that. Like it's, you know, in the end, it's religion that wins.
Yeah.
It's what conquers, you know, it's what conquers the evil.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that that's become like the norm for the average like Christian of we just don't look at that stuff. Like we stay away from it. So I try to, like I said, in like October when everyone's kind of in that mood anyways, like you said, kind of like in a way push the envelope of like just look at this, like look at it from a different perspective for once. Like that's kind of the main driving force of my channel, is like in some ways I want to expose myself to non-Christians and non-religious people so that they can be curious. Like what, obviously that's kind of what drew you in, of just becoming curious about that perspective. And at the same time, maybe the people, because I grew up with people who are far more conservative than me, and kind of like getting them to kind of challenge themselves and look at things in a different way. Like I still remember back when this was a blog before I kind of switched over into doing a YouTube channel. One of the websites my parents used for if we were going to watch a movie growing up was christiananswers.net. And they had an entertainment section where they would write movie reviews from a very Christian perspective. And it would basically, the way they would rate it is like how offensive it was. So it'd either be like extremely offensive, somewhat offensive, neutral, you know, and whatever the positive ones would be. And I still remember back in, I think it was 2017 when Baby Driver came out. I had never like visited the site since I became an adult, but I was like, I wonder if this website's still up, because I remember my parents checking it all the time growing up. So I checked it out, and they had done a review for Baby Driver, and the line that stuck out to me that made me so mad is the guy who reviewed it said, like, the worst thing about this movie is it has like no redeeming Christian values, and so gave it like a horrible review or whatever. And I'm like, I watched that movie and I picked up on some really cool themes about, like, you know, crime, like how that affects you personally, and like all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I haven't seen the movie for a little while, so it's not fresh, but I was like, in a funny way, I was so offended at his lack of open-mindedness, just to like, you could tell he went into that with a certain mindset and wasn't open to like something different. So that was definitely one of the things that made me want to get people to look at things in a different way, like the Baby Driver movie and then the Netflix Daredevil series. It was like huge for me. That was the first blog post I wrote, because for as much as the show is focused around like, you know, comic books, superheroes, and like the show's extremely violent and dark in a lot of ways, especially in season 2 and 3, like there's so many interesting religious like questions that are posed. Like Matt Murdock goes through some really tough crisis of faith moments, especially in season 3. And I was just like, I was blown away that something that was like not at all religious, but because it was a religious character, it asked so many questions that I thought made for really interesting conversations.
Yeah, and it's funny that that like yeah, you're talking about like the violence and stuff. When I remember being younger and my mom would tell me stories of you know, like stories from the Bible and stuff, which she would read to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember like these are really violent stories. Like
Yeah,
some of them are really violent. So
yeah,
it's just kind of like the juxtaposition of the two is just kind
oh
of,
yeah,
it's always been weird to me. I'm like,
yeah,
so we shouldn't watch anything violent, but this book is full of very
yeah.
violent moments.
Oh yeah, there's so much like violence, affairs, like all this kind of stuff like riddled throughout the story of the Bible.
Because I remember when I first saw the Passion of the Christ, and I was just like you know, my jaw dropped at just how violent it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
But you know, like it's something that my mom had us watch on. I think it was like a Christmas. I think it came out. I think that's what she we had watched it, and you know, it kind of just like I don't know, it was just very interesting that I think that's why I respect that film so much, and why I respect Mel
Mm-hmm.
Gibson so much was to actually just you know go for it and be very
Yeah.
real and just be very accurate. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
he wasn't afraid to show you know the reality of it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It wasn't through a, you know, very clean conservative lens or whatever. That was very, very like raw and authentic.
Mm-hmm. So we got a comment from Jared. Haven't seen Spaceballs. Yeah, Spaceballs is it's hilarious.
Yeah. That's probably the Mel Brooks movie I've seen the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
That one.
yeah, the first one I think I saw was Blazing Saddles, just because my dad was a big fan of westerns.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was one of the first ones, and then I saw like Young Frankenstein and
Yeah.
Spaceballs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Yeah. I haven't
what
seen
else
all his
was there?
movies, but I'd say Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, and Spaceballs are my favorite of his.
Mm-hmm. I have a cousin. It's funny. I have a cousin who hates Spaceballs just because he's a
Yeah.
huge Star Wars fan.
Mm-hmm.
And like just the parody and making fun of like Star Wars and
Yeah.
stuff, like he hates
Well, I
it.
mean, Mel Brooks was a huge Star Wars fan himself. I heard that he like asked George Lucas permission to make it, like because he was such a huge fan of Star Wars and stuff. So it was like, I mean, it was made from a place of love for the franchise.
Yeah, it usually is. It's kind of like I feel like yeah, a lot of parodies really come from that place. I mean, there are some that you can obviously tell are just made
Mm-hmm.
because they're cash grabs, but
Yeah.
Like Scary Movie, you can tell just had a lot of love for those
Mm-hmm.
old like horror films,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well, even
yeah, like
even like
Spaceballs.
the Scream movies, like in a way, they're kind of spoofing
Mm-hmm.
the slasher movies of the '80s, but it's done from a place of like love and respect. So, but it also like
Yeah.
subverts it and creates something new.
Mm-hmm. That is why, like, this is a controversial opinion, but that's one of the reasons why I do respect Scream, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't particularly like the films. Just
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, you know, I'm just not a horror fan,
Yeah.
and also because I felt like that should have been a one-off. If
Yeah.
it was a one-off, I would love that movie. But
Yeah.
because they kept going at it and kind of milking that idea,
Yeah. And it got very
I
meta.
yeah. Once it got to like that like movie within a movie within a movie and
Yeah.
like Scream 4
Yeah.
or whatever, I was like, So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I feel like Scream, I kind of want to do a video about that, like movies that should have just been one
Mm-hmm.
off and then that's it. Scream is
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Yeah, I just watched the Scream movies for the first time, like at the end of last year. I'd never seen them, and they were on like Vudu that you could watch them for free with ads. And I was like, oh, finally, I can check these out. And I really enjoyed them. The first one's definitely the best, but I still thought
Hmm.
2 and 3 was okay. But I can definitely understand someone who's like, it's just got too meta at the end.
That's one of the reasons why I personally hate the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the first one was fine and they should just left it at that, but then it just got more ridiculous and ridiculous as time goes on. And now I'm just like, now they're just like parodies of themselves, you know?
Yeah.
It started off, the franchise started off as a Point Break ripoff that, you know, funny enough, no one talks about that. It is a total and blatant ripoff of Point Break. All right, so we got another comment. We got one from Undead Nightmare 24. Hey, buddy, you just entered. Hey, what's up, man? Very cool guy. This guy has like, I don't know if you've seen his channel, but he just has like the coolest collection of like action, like really cool, like 80s and 90s, like really like obscure action films and horror films, which I really dig. I really dig channels that kind of, that's kind of what I try to do, is highlight very obscure and kind of underappreciated films. Yeah, he does that with like action and exploitation films and horror films. It's really cool.
Yeah. That's cool.
I can't watch Scream and take it seriously after watching scary movies. That's another reason why I can't watch Scream, is because I just think of scary movies.
On what order you watch it in.
Yeah, spoof movies have really like ruined horror films for me. Because I grew up on a lot of like very cheesy B horror films, because that's what my grandfather was into. Yeah, he's kind of the one that got me into like the Leprechaun films and Puppet Master. So those, like, you know, when I say I don't really care for horror movies, it's that I don't care for the kind of mainstream horror in a way. But I really dig creature features, and I really dig like cheesy B horror films that are made just really cheaply and very badly. Like the worse the effects are, I love it. Like I just love it. Fast 5 is the only Fast and Furious film I can get into. Yeah, that one I feel like is the only one that kind of took itself serious in a way.
Yeah, it was like just enough. That's probably one of my. If I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be the first or that fifth one.
I can't remember which one it was, but I kind of gave up on that series after. I can't remember which one. Was it 6 or 7?
The one where they're at they're on the runway with the plane. And the plane's going like 150 miles an hour for like 30 minutes.
And after that, like, I don't know, and then like that tank or whatever that was going like 100 miles an hour down the freeway. I'm like, first off, a tank can't move that fast. And like Vin Diesel flying out in the middle of the air and catching that chick in midair and landing on a car without instantly dying. I'm like,
not
okay.
Even a bruise.
Yeah. And when was it Vin Diesel or The Rock that like stomps on the ground and then just the ground just crumbles underneath him?
It was probably Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, this is getting ridiculous.
I'd say the 6th one is the most over the top and outrageous one. As much as 7 and 8 got crazy, because they just get crazier and crazier, but I feel like the 6th one was probably the least plausible of all of them. Like at least 7 had kind of like the heart of being Paul Walker's last one, and I thought 8 gave an interesting perspective of turning Vin Diesel against everybody. But 6, it was interesting though, because we got up to, I was rewatching them all like a couple of years ago, not rewatching, watching them for the first time. And we got up to like 5 and I was like, oh, these are great. And then watched 6 and I was like, oh. And then it kind of got a little better for 7, and then 8 was okay. And so I did watch Hobbs and Shaw a few months ago. That one was just a little too much for me.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw, I unironically kind of liked it because of how dumb it was.
Yeah.
Like, it knows it's dumb. And that's why I'm like, okay, I can respect this one because it's not taking itself seriously. It knows what it is. It knows it's just so dumb. Yeah. So that's kind of why I'm like, I was watching it. My mother-in-law is actually watching it. She's like, oh, have you seen this? I was like, what is it? And, you know, and we're watching Hobbs and Shaw, and I'm like, and I think I posted on like Instagram or to my Snapchat thing, and with like the caption, it said, this is literally like the dumbest movie I've ever seen, and I love it.
Yeah, I did enjoy the movie, but it's definitely the wildest of the bunch. And the only thing that kind of dropped it off for me was where like it really seemed like the movie was about to end and then they go to like the Rock's family, and the movie goes on for another like half an hour. Like they
Yeah.
straight up like looked like the movie was about to end, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to Hawaii."
Mm-hmm. Jared Runner says, for me, they should have ended at 7.
I think they're gonna go with 11 movies total, from what I've heard. I've heard they're doing 9, and then they were, from what I heard, Paul Walker originally said it was gonna be 10 movies, but they just, I think Vin Diesel announced a month or two ago that the last 2 are gonna be like a part 1 and a part 2, and I'm like, aren't all the movies like a part 1, 2, 3, or 5 or whatever? Like, why does the last 2 have to be this one part 1, this one part 2? They're all the same story.
Yeah. And it'll be in space.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
I wouldn't even be surprised.
Tarzan swing a car.
I would not be surprised. They're like, oh yeah, this next one's gonna be in space. Like, okay. Undead Namer says, thanks for the shout out. Yeah, no problem, man. Like he's another one of those guys that I really enjoy his content. Hopefully we can get him on a live stream. Hint, 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 dude. I was trying to get him on a live stream, but like he doesn't do like face reveal, which I totally respect, because I tried to do that. Like when, and if you watch like my older videos, I kind of just like got rid of all of the videos I used to have with my face.
Yeah.
And I started doing the narrative based ones.
Right.
And that was because I wanted to just do videos where I didn't show my face.
Mm-hmm.
But I did one for my birthday, where I did my birthday haul.
Yeah.
And everyone loved it. Everyone loved it, and they were like, "Oh, you should show your face more." And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. So that kind of just ended there.
Yeah, I think that was the main reason I clicked on that video, because I was like, "Oh, hey, I don't know what he looks like."
Yeah, and then everyone was like, "Oh, you should do more of these face videos." I'm like, I get. All right, cool. I mean, I still do those ones that like those narrative videos that don't necessarily need my face.
Yeah.
Those I'll still do those. You know, I really enjoy those.
Yeah. No, I
can just like
people who don't want to put themselves out there as much. I mean, you can do a live stream like this without a face on. You don't need it.
Yeah, that's what I was telling them. Like, you would just put your your little icon there.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, you can just put a little avatar picture up or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I like when they all reunite in Fast and the Furious. I don't remember which part it was, but after they needed to stop.
I feel like they reunite in every Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, nothing. It's all about family.
I think the 7 was the big one, where there was the big reunion.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw. Was it 8? I think it was 8. I think I saw that in a barber shop. Funny enough.
Oh yeah.
I was getting my hair cut, and I just remember Charlize Theron with like blonde dreads or something.
Yeah.
I just thought it looked really weird.
Yeah.
I was like, is that Charlize Theron?
I don't know. She's like a part of the movies now, apparently, because she's in the next one too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I know you had a few questions for me. As conversation has been going, I've been crossing off some of them because we kind of go into them. But is there any questions that you haven't asked?
Yeah, I can ask a few. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want, we can like rapid fire a few questions or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Mine aren't necessarily 2-word answers, but I was just curious, kind of like, what got you into movies? Like, was that something you've been, it seems like it's something you were always interested in growing up and stuff. It wasn't something that like you got into as you got older. Where like I watched movies growing up, but I didn't really get into it from like a filmmaking and study perspective until I got to kind of like high school, college for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me it was probably straight from the beginning when I was like really, really young. My like I said, my grandpa had a huge collection of like really crazy B horror films that he would watch.
Yeah.
That he would let me watch when my dad would drop me off there.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time when I was young. Me and my little brother spent a lot of time with my grandparents.
Yeah.
And he had a work shed in the backyard, and he'd always be working back there, and he'd kind of just sit me on the stool and like, here, watch the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where it started. And my dad also too. He was really into film. He really loved westerns.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's kind of like, it's funny that like my fundamentals of loving movies is in like horror, but I'm not a huge fan of
Yeah,
it,
it's just not your
which is
thing
kind of
anymore.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like westerns too. I do love a good western, but it's not really my favorite. My favorite's always been sci-fi.
Hmm.
Um, I was always that like that nerd, that sci-fi nerd, always
Hmm.
into like space and planets and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
like doing all kinds of stuff that you can't do. You know,
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I love
Hmm.
about sci-fi so much is that it pretty much like is like every kid's dream come true. Like you know, like flying in a spaceship
Yeah.
and having
Hmm.
crazy weapons and stuff like that. That's what I love
Yeah.
about sci-fi so much.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
Hmm. I didn't really get into the technical side of filmmaking until I saw like I mentioned this in one of my videos. It was Dark City.
Hmm.
Dark City was the first film that I saw that I was like got me really interested in set pieces and you know how a story is written, you know
Yeah.
how scripts are written and how someone directs. Because even though I had seen The Godfather before that, and you know I think The Godfather is the greatest film ever made. It's like to me it's like film perfection.
Hmm.
Like there's not one thing wrong with that movie. I don't think.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got older that I went back to it and was like, wow, like this is actually you know that solidified it that it actually is to me like the greatest film ever made.
Yeah.
But even when I did watch it as a kid, I don't know for some reason like it's been my favorite movie since I was like 6 years old when I first saw it. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have been watching that when I was 6 or 7, but yeah, like I watched it and I even as a kid I was just like, whoa, like this is I just knew that this was something like magical, you know?
Yeah, something special. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just knew it from the very first moment I saw it. That's why it's I've seen a ton of great films, you know, in the many years I've been alive, but to this day nothing has ever been able to top the greatness that I think The Godfather is.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything ever will. I don't think
Hmm.
anything will ever be able to match that.
Yeah. That's cool.
I'm assuming it's kind of the same thing for you. Like it also like my love for film deepened when I got to like high school and college and I studied
Hmm.
film. I think in a way studying film in school kind of hurt my love for films because I just
Hmm.
started after that I just started dissecting way too much
Yeah.
and I would criticize every little thing that I saw in a movie,
Hmm.
you know, and like okay that was done wrong. I can see where that's wrong. I can see you know. I
Yeah.
feel like for some people it helps. For me, I think it hurt my love of film. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to do. I might do a video on that. Like I have this idea of doing a video on that, like kind of discussing, you know, that film class kind of hurt my
Yeah.
love of
How
film.
film study kind of like negatively affects it.
Yeah, because I just stopped having fun with them, and
Hmm.
once I just unlearned all that stuff, I was able to have fun with movies again. That's
Yeah.
why I love. That's why I can watch a lot of terrible movies, and
Yeah.
still find enjoyment in them.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I first started looking at it from like a filmmaking perspective when I took a film study class, and it was very much like an introductory. There was more. It was more. I just took it as an elective, and I up until that point, I loved watching movies. I just watched movies all the time, but that was the first time I got to look at it from a more filmmaking perspective. So it was a very introductory course. Like we watched like Do the Right Thing, The Godfather, I
Mm-hmm.
remember. I still remember The Godfather was the first color film we watched in that class. So it was a big deal because it was the first color movie. Everything before that was black and white. We watched like Citizen Kane. So that was the first time that I was like kind of open my mind to the actual work that goes into making a movie. And besides that, like I didn't go to school for film. I just went for business. But it was something that kind of piqued that interest for me. And I'd say since that point, the rest of film studies mostly been like self-taught of like watching video essays from channels like less like lessons from the screenplay and just right and stuff like that, where they just kind of look at it from that perspective of screenwriting, set pieces, like cinematography, that kind of stuff. I'm just fascinated by that. And so I think for me, like you say, like it's kind of had a negative effect. I'd say overall for me,
Mm-hmm.
because most of it was kind of like self-taught in a way, I've always kind of like maintained a good passion for it. I can definitely see
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely moments when I'm watching movies where like because of what I know, it kind of frustrates me of like certain moments and
Yeah.
stuff. But I'd say overall it's been a positive for me.
Okay, so we got a couple more comments here.
Yeah.
We got 4K D-Ray. What is up, everyone? Hey, 4K D-Ray. Awesome. Awesome guy. Awesome content. Got a lot of really cool stuff. Okay, this is Hey Jared. Everybody loves Jared, man. Jared's such a cool guy. I got Rev 4K. What's up, Rev? What's up, everyone? Jared Runner. Hey, 4K. I'm telling you, Jared. Everyone loves you, Jared. All right. Any other questions?
What have you enjoyed most about creating content on YouTube? We've kind of like touched on it a little bit, but
yeah, that's what I love about this. The free flow conversation is that I end up asking you all the questions I was going to ask or answer.
Yeah, they just come out.
I mean, my favorite thing is always for me, it's always the editing. Like, you know, what I can put into my videos to make people laugh. That's kind of the main thing. Like I don't like to make very serious videos. I just like my videos to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So if only like one person laughs at it, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I don't dislike editing, but it's probably one of my lesser liked aspects. But I mean, for my style of videos, there's at least I'd say half the time there's not a ton of like extra flair that I can throw in for editing. It's something I just kind of, you know, let's just structure everything together in sequence, and you know, I throw a fun thing in here and there, but I wouldn't say I dislike editing, but for me, it's definitely lower on the totem pole. And for some videos, as soon as I'm done hitting record, I'm like, man, I wish this was edited already.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
because editing's where the longest step in the process is, I think, because you know, it takes, you know, I try to make my videos about 10 minutes each, and you know, you can record that in 20-30 minutes, but then you go back and edit it. It takes like 2, 3, 4 hours just to edit a 10-minute video.
Yep. I mean, I've gotten a lot quicker in my edits, but it does take me a while because, like I said, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I just go over like every little thing I do and say like 4 or 5 times just to make sure I like it.
Yeah.
So it does take a while.
Yeah. One time I re-recorded a video because I didn't like the camera angle I had on it. That was probably my biggest do-over I've done.
So we have 4K D-Ray. We love that Jared isn't afraid to say he hasn't seen a movie and is so willing to go back and watch it immediately. Yeah, very true. We love Rev for his honest hot takes. Yeah, Rev has some very, very interesting opinions on film, and I'm all for it. I love it. You know, I love when people have different opinions on stuff and are very passionate about it. I myself am like that, but I don't talk about it because I know it's gonna make some people mad.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, I try to stay very positive. But if I do talk about something I don't like, I try to make it funny. And then this one's for you, Austin. Any relation to George St. Pierre?
That's a no, but it's not the first time I've gotten that question. Every time I like introduce myself to someone, they're like, "Oh, like the fighter?" Nope. We just share a last name. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a long lost relative. I haven't looked into it, but
yeah, that's another thing too. Like you probably have like one of the coolest last names. And I was gonna ask you too if that's like your real last name or if that's just like a stage name.
No, it is my last name. Yeah, my family's originally French in some kind of descent. I know my grandfather spoke like fluent French. He never spoke around us, so I never really knew it till right around when he passed away. When we were, you know, looking back on his life, I was like, "What? He spoke French?"
Yeah, that's like I don't know. It's kind of that's kind of like my grandfather too. My grandfather only spoke. He barely spoke English. He really only spoke our native language.
Yeah.
So I only know certain phrases and certain words, but we never, like, my mom never really kind of instilled that into us because I think she thought it would hurt us more than it would help.
Yeah.
I do actually speak Spanish, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And that has actually helped me out a lot because different places that I work down here, knowing Spanish really helps out.
Oh yeah.
I did get to know
Yeah.
Spanish. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember my dad telling me once that he wished his dad, who spoke French, had taught him growing up. But I guess my grandfather was of the mindset of like, we're in America, we're gonna speak English. So, but he always said he wished that he had taught him French because it could have been something he could have passed down to us too.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with my own kids.
Mm-hmm.
My older son, he does know a little Spanish because my mom kind of teaches him here and there.
Yeah.
But I kind of I'm on the fence of letting him just kind of do that on his own.
Yeah.
That's where I think me and my parents kind of differ. Is I want my kids to make their own decisions.
Mm.
Um, my parents kind of had a little bit of that. I think they got when it got to like I'm number 5 of 6. So
Yeah.
by the time they got to me and my little brother, we were kind of just left to do our own thing. They kind of just
Mm-hmm.
tested the waters with like my older brother, my older
Yeah.
sister, and they found what works is letting us make our own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of why like my older brothers and sisters kind of resent us because we had more freedom.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, you got to do whatever you want." I was like, "Yeah," because they saw that I was very responsible in making my own decisions.
Yeah.
You know, and I haven't made I'm not flawless. I have made mistakes, but I was able to learn from those things,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that my parents let me have as much freedom as I did
Yeah.
because now I can pass that on to my own kids. I do have restrictions on my son. He plays Fortnite a lot, but he's also restricted to certain things he can't play.
Yeah.
I'm not letting him play GTA and stuff
Right.
and different things like that. And but I do. He's very good at making his own decisions. I do let him have his own bit of freedom
Mm-hmm.
because he's earned that.
Yeah.
He's a very good kid. He listens very well. He does well in school, so he earns a lot of that freedom that
Oh,
he
yeah.
has.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the best way to learn, to
Hmm.
manage that.
All right. So Undead Nightmare 24 says, "What is your favorite genres in film?" Guys, I know Foxman's sci-fi. Yep, that's right. So I wanted to ask a couple of favorite movies from the genre as well. Well, when it comes to sci-fi, like my favorite sci-fi film is Dark City.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I really love is like Star Trek. Um, the newer ones are pretty good, but like I said,
Yeah.
my favorite TV show of all time is Star Trek: The Next Generation. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I recently
really love
rewatched all
those.
the newer Star Trek movies, and I was like, wow, these are all really good. Like better than I remember them being when I watched them when they first came
Hmm.
out. So yeah, I enjoy those a lot. My favorite would probably be some blend of like sci-fi fantasy, because obviously Lord of the Rings are my favorite movies. So I like anything that kind of delves into fantastical elements and science fiction, like because I grew up on all the Star Wars movies and Lord of the Rings and superheroes and stuff like that. But I also have a pretty soft spot for action movies, whether it's like contemporary action movies. Like I love what the Mission Impossible movies and stuff like that are
Hmm.
doing right now. I think that's really cool with like all the practical stunt work and stuff. But then I also enjoy like the 80s and 90s action movies of Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I grew up on a lot of action movies. My dad really loved a lot of action movies. I
Mm-hmm.
personally have always loved Jean-Claude Van Damme, like
Mm-hmm.
all
I
his
never
like
watched much
early.
of his stuff.
Yeah, I remember wanting to learn martial arts because of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
I would always like mimic his moves and stuff from his movies. So I've always wanted
Yeah.
to. That's kind of what got me into um, martial arts films too, is
Mm-hmm.
from watching Jean-Claude Van Damme like roundhouse kick people in the face.
Yeah.
So so I got
Mm-hmm.
into a lot of kung fu movies like Jet Li and Jackie Chan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jed, I know a few words in Japanese. Very nice. I
Nice.
know a little German. I'm very rusty because I haven't practiced it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can read and write in German though. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think I can like read and write in different languages more than I can actually speak them. Like Spanish, I can
Mm-hmm.
speak it very well, and I can also
Yeah.
read and write it. But with like German, I'm very rusty in speaking it, but I can read and write it.
Yeah. Yeah, both my wife and I took Spanish in high school, not knowing what we'd do with it. But then in doing mission work down in Mexico, that's kind of been a refresher for us. Where my wife would say she's better at like the written stuff, where I she said she'd tell you I know more, where like she knows a lot of the verbs and I just know I'm better at picking up on stuff. Where like someone can say like something to her and she might have gotten a few words here and there where I actually kind of like I may not have heard everything, but I got the gist of what they were saying, and I can kind of
Hmm.
like give her the spark notes on it.
Yeah, that's what I kind of love about the Spanish language, especially like in Mexican culture. It's
Hmm.
not so much as what is being spoken; it's how it's being spoken and
Yeah,
the gestures.
yeah,
So even if you don't understand everything that they're saying,
hmm
their body language like kind of tells it all.
yeah,
That's what they don't teach you in Spanish class, though.
yeah,
And like certain words will be used in different ways and stuff, and like one word can mean like 10 different things.
right, exactly.
It's just deciphering what they're trying to say with their body language and stuff.
Hmm.
So 4K D-Ray asks, what physical release are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about the idea of Zack Snyder's Justice League coming to Blu-ray. It seems like it's going to
Yeah,
happen from what I've heard, but I feel like we haven't gotten anything concrete yet. Like I've heard of like a UK 4K release, but I don't think we've heard anything about an official
yeah. I
US
think
release
I
yet.
think those like sold out like in a minute or something like that. Like in
Yeah,
5 minutes, they just sold out.
yeah, and it was like so quick that I don't really know if it was true or not. So like
Mhm.
I'm hoping we're gonna get it in the US. I feel like Warner Bros would be stupid not to.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And also with like the 4K restoration or remaster of Batman versus Superman, it's only
Mhm.
logical that they would also put out a 4K
Yeah.
release of that.
Yeah.
I would love like that's like a day one pickup would be like the 4K
Oh
of
yeah.
Zack Snyder Justice because it looks
Mhm.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Even
Yeah, I would
on
love to
like
see it that way.
yeah, even on like when you're streaming it looks great.
Hmm. Yeah. My biggest critique on HBO Max's streaming is their audio is so quiet. Like I don't know what kind of sound system you use. I have like a basic like home theater Blu-ray player that I got. So it's nothing fancy, but it is nicer than like a sound bar or whatever. But like anytime I watch a movie on HBO Max, I have to turn it all the way up, and it's just enough that I can hear it. Every time I watch a movie on here, I'm like, I'm gonna tweet at HBO and tell them to turn up their audio.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't had that. I mean, everything I have is like a 4K. I got the 4K setup and everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
I don't know. It might just be
I'm
my
trying to
sound system.
remember.
I don't know. I may just need to tweak it more.
Maybe I'm trying to remember what the last thing besides Justice League what I was that I watched on HBO. No, you know what? You might be right because I do remember when I watched. Was it The Little Things? That came out
Hmm.
on HBO Max, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I remember I watched that, and the audio was kind of low too on that.
yeah. I first noticed it when Wonder Woman 84 came out because we had like a bunch of people over to watch it, and we had to turn the subtitles on. Like it was just everything was so quiet. Like the action scenes were loud enough, but like any talking scene in combination with action, everyone's like, "Could you turn it up?" I'm like, "It's all the way up." I'm sorry. And
Yeah,
then when Mortal Kombat came out, they messed up the aspect ratio on it on Samsung TVs. I don't know what kind of TV you have, but the if you have like a Samsung Smart TV, some of the
Mhm.
HBO Max apps messed up the aspect ratio and like pushed it to full screen, so the aspect ratio was wrong and everything was stretched. And I noticed it from like the first frame, but it took me 5 minutes to like actually be like, okay, I'm gonna Google this because I can't be the only one. So I looked it up, and there was some glitch with Samsung TV, so I had to like switch to my PlayStation to watch it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I have a Samsung.
Yeah,
I'm a Samsung groupie. That's really all I
yeah,
have.
hmm
But yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of. I noticed that trend of like very low audio when it comes to talking and very very
just crank up
loud
the
actions when
action.
like
Yeah,
IMAX
yeah,
first started to come be, and then Christopher Nolan kind of took it a step further.
yeah,
So now like everything all the action movies are just like the action is super loud, and then when they're
Yeah.
talking, you can barely hear them.
Uh-huh.
4K Deer says the intros on HBO shows that show you what happened in the last shows has very low audio. At least East Town does.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed when they do like show recaps, they tend to not be as nice as like the current episode you're watching.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Like I said, I just jotted down a few. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and we
Yeah, that
kind
and
of talked about
yeah,
stuff I kind of had in my mind anyways. So,
yeah, pretty. Yeah, pretty, I'm looking at the questions I wrote down on my phone. Pretty much went through them all, kind of just through
yeah,
conversation, which is really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And yeah, pretty much. I think the only other question I had was one I kind of wanted to maybe start asking every YouTuber I do a live
Mhm.
stream with, and
Yeah.
that was basically if you've ever thought of quitting YouTube.
There's been a couple times, like I said, maybe like 6 months to a year and a half into YouTube when I was trying to like make content to grow the channel. You put hours of work into a video, you post it, and it gets 15 views or whatever, and it's like, oh man, all that work for pretty much nothing. So I mean, it's definitely, I've gotten to that point a couple of times, but usually what helps me to get over that is if like I take a week or two break, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, maybe the last video didn't too good, and even if I had something planned, like let's just put this off and just kind of give myself a mental break. So I'd say my encouragement for anyone who feels like they should quit, like just remember that you're not doing it to grow, like just do it because you're passionate about it. And if you feel like you want to quit, maybe just take a break for 1 or a few weeks and come back around to it. Because I
Mhm.
mean, the people who care about the content you make, it's not going to matter to them. They're still going to be there.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate about the people that have stuck around on my channel from the times that I did quit, and also like when I switched up the format of my videos, because like I said, I used to do a lot of like the Blu-ray hauls and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'll ever do one of those again,
Yeah,
which I hope people will understand, and I hope they'll keep watching. I mean, they
yeah,
have been, so that's really cool, and that's very
mm-hmm.
supportive of them, and I appreciate everyone for that,
Yeah,
because I know that's the thing that, like I said, that's what gets most of my views and stuff, and
yeah.
that's what
Same
gets
for me.
people coming in, is that, and
Yeah,
because that's what everyone started with.
mm-hmm.
That's how they were introduced to my channel first, was from
Yeah,
that. But the thing was that, like, I felt like, I don't know, I just kind of felt like I was in a box, and there's just too many people out there that do what that way better than I did. So
yeah.
I've always had that in the back of my mind, like, why are they gonna watch me when they could just watch somebody else doing the same thing
Yeah.
and does it better?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because just this past week, I've gotten to the point where, because I keep like Amazon wish lists of all the stuff that I kind of want. So I was like
Mm-hmm.
scrolling through my wish list this past week and I was like, I've almost caught up on everything of like catalog wise that either I grew up watching or wanted to catch up on, of like adding it to my collection. I'm like, sometime in the next few months, I may not really be buying enough movies to like justify Blu-ray hauls. So like, I
Mm-hmm.
wonder how people are going to respond if like, those instead of being a monthly video, maybe it becomes, once every few months or something like that. Like, hey, here's some of the stuff I picked up or whatnot. So yeah, that's something that I kind of came to the realization of this past week, because it's like I don't want to just go out and buy movies just for Blu-ray hauls to get views. Like I want to buy movies that I actually care about.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I've seen about some other YouTubers. They'll, and I respect it. Hey, you gotta put out content. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they'll go out and there's really not a whole lot, and they need content, so they'll kind
Yeah,
of just do a haul video of like literally two movies that they bought.
yeah,
And I'm like, you can hold off on that, just wait till
yeah,
you get like
yeah.
a
Don't
few
don't
more.
do it just because you feel like you have to. Like,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing them, because
yeah,
it got to the point where I felt like there was, at the time I wasn't buying a whole lot of movies anyway.
mm-hmm.
Because I only buy stuff that I'm going to enjoy. So
Yeah,
most of the time there was only like one release or two releases of something I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed those and then that was it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, this isn't really enough for a video. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
set up the camera and, you know,
Right.
talk
Just
about
for
two
the
movies.
yeah. Yeah. That's where like last year at the beginning of the year when everything shut down, like I was like, man, what am I gonna do for my Blu-ray hauls? But then it kind of got to the point of like instead of buying new releases, most of last year I focused on picking up either movies that I wanted to upgrade from DVD to Blu-ray or just picking up that back catalog of titles I've just been wanting to get for a while. So it kind of worked out in my favor that I was kind of able to shift gears a little bit and still work. But still, sometime this year, I know definitely by the end of this year, I won't really have as much of a catalog of stuff I need to pick up, which for me is good because I won't be spending as much money on movies. But at the same time, it's going to change my content a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I transitioned to doing more of these like narrative videos
Mm-hmm.
because you know, I actually enjoy those a lot more because I get to be more creative.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I wanted to do was just be more creative. I wanted to keep stuff fresh because if I don't, then I'll probably just stop doing it and then I won't
Mm-hmm.
come back to it. This way everything stays fresh and I get to be more creative.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
and
is, you know, that's
sometimes
something
that,
that
yeah, sometimes it's the lack of something that kind of forces your creativity that produces some of the best stuff.
yeah, that's another one of my video ideas is you know how 2020 kind of in a way made my channel better that I
Mm-hmm.
think because it forced me to just be more creative and do something different
Yeah,
and I ended up enjoying it a lot more, so that's
yeah,
what I'm sticking with now.
yeah,
So we got 4K D-Ray. He says, I got caught in doing it just for YouTube a couple of times. Back to the Future Collection, Scream Factory, Friday the 13th. Yeah, that was a pricey set.
yeah,
Great franchises, but I could have waited. Yeah, man, like when that Friday the 13th set came out, like everyone jumped on that. So like
oh yeah.
literally my feed,
It's
I
just all,
honestly just I
yeah,
stopped watching. There was
yeah.
a lot of
How
people
many
that I didn't
times can
even
I
watch
watch
them.
someone show the same thing?
Yeah, that's why, you know, like I said, I limit the amount of physical media collectors that I watch,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have to be very diverse. You know, so I said like I watch a
Yeah.
lot of different people who, you know, talk about obscure stuff, popular stuff,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, because I don't want to look at my feed and just see the same, you
Yeah.
know, releases over and
Yeah,
over.
because then you're just gonna pick one or two and that's it.
Yeah, and then I feel bad because I want to watch everybody's stuff and I want to
Right.
comment, but it's like there's only so many times I can comment, "Hey, awesome Friday the 13th set."
Yeah.
All right, so that was that question. That's one of the questions that I feel like I'm going to ask everyone. This is kind of it's
Yeah,
interesting to
that's a
know
good
that
question.
everyone kind of goes through that every once in a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Yeah.
And then I think that's pretty much it. I think the only other questions that I had was we kind of went over that. Like we kind of the other questions were like kind of dealing with the your faith and stuff like that about like how, you know, if your faith kind of hinders, you know, what movies you can and can't watch and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of discussed that.
Yeah.
And the other one was like if it kind of limits your collection in a way. Like, you know, certain things you're probably not going to watch and not buy. So I'm wondering if like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
like limits you as a collector.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, most things I'm open to at least like watching and streaming, but there's certain things that I'll, you know, if I'm going to add it to the collection, I want to make sure it's something more personal to me. Like, I mean, definitely in the past 2 years or so, I've opened myself up to more within like the horror genre specifically, because we talked about that being like very taboo within Christian circles. And in that,
Mm-hmm.
kind of adding certain horror movies and whatnot to my collection, but making sure I tried to, no matter what genre I'm adding of a movie to my collection, be very intentional about kind of why it's in there, because I feel in a fun way about your personality at the same time. So I try to be very intentional. I mean, there's a few random things here and there that you just get for fun, and maybe it's something that's harder to find, so you want to have it in your collection and whatnot. And there's the normal, like I have, you know, all the MCU movies and stuff like that that like most collectors are going to have, but I've try to make sure that most of the movies in my collection are something that I'm intentionally adding there for a specific reason, whether it's one thing or another.
Hmm. Do I don't know, you live in what area did you say you lived in?
In Ohio and kind
Ohio,
of
right? Oh, okay.
Midwest, yeah.
Yeah. And do you have a lot of Christian friends out there?
Yeah, because this is the area I went to college to, and that was
Hmm.
obviously a Christian environment. So I'd say the majority of my friends are Christians, but especially over the past few years, I've tried to kind of branch out more because, kind of like we talked about, of like same thing of like if I only exclusively watch the normal Christian movies that are coming out, I'm only going to have so much exposure to that style of things. Where if I only have Christian friends, I'm only going to be restricted to kind of a certain mindset. So I want to
Hmm.
have friends who have different, beliefs when it comes to their faith and, lifestyle and stuff like that. Because I think it's important to my own faith and personality too.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was going to ask you is if they kind of share the same views as you, or are they a little bit more conservative in what they watch?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say even my Christian friends, I'd say I have a pretty wide variety of kind of where they sit in their faith. I mean, I don't even know where I'd pin down exactly like where in my faith I sit because like we've said, everyone makes mistakes, and there's certain things we could all do better or all do worse in. So it's kind of hard to nail down a specific
Hmm.
spectrum of where everyone lies. So, but yeah, I'd say majority of my friends are definitely Christians because I think it's important to surround yourself with those kinds of people for my lifestyle. But at the same time, I don't want to be closed minded to people who aren't in that kind of time of life because I think it's important to have friends from different backgrounds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. 4K D-Ray asks, Austin, have you seen Fireproof?
I have, yes, that one. I don't think I saw that one in the theaters, but I still remember when that one came out on DVD. My parents bought it, and we all like watched it in the living room. I'd say of that's one of the Kendrick brothers ones. That was the one I forgot was Fireproof. That was like
Hmm.
the first like big one that kind of like blew them up, not only in like the Christian circles, but kind of like the more mainstream, I guess, for lack of a better word, like kind of like the secular realm. So that
Yeah.
was kind of the first one like blew them. I do like that one. I'd say of the movies that the Kendrick brothers have made, my favorite of theirs is Facing the Giants, which is their like football sports movie. Which I'm not even really a sports guy, but I really enjoy the story of that one and the themes that it focused on. I felt like of the movies they've made, that one had the best balance of not coming across as overly preachy and at the same time like focusing on the story.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually do have. I try to kind of keep my collection to a wide variety of stuff
Mm-hmm.
from different points of views. I do have a few. I don't know exactly how Christian they are, but I do have a few. Like I have Risen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't remember what else. Like like Hacksaw Ridge. I consider that a Christian film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then other ones that kind of have a different point of view, but still, I guess, kind of enter that realm, but kind of tweak stories a bit, like Noah with Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
That one I thought was interesting because it kind of like it changes a lot of things, but it's still kind of true to the story in a way, but just kind of tries to
Mm-hmm.
expand on it.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times it's interesting just to see stuff that's like inspired by something out of the Bible, just to kind of see different interpretations. Like, you're not going to agree with everything you see, and in some cases, you may be offended by certain things, but at the same time, it's still interesting to kind of delve into those different perspectives.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can tell when someone's genuinely trying to show a different perspective, and other times you can blatantly see that they're just trying to be
Yeah.
offensive for the sake of
Hmm.
doing that.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff I don't really like. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, that's a little
even
bit
if
more of a turn off.
yeah, even if like like I said, I'm not a super religious person, but I
Mhm.
also have respect for it to where if I see something like that, I'm like, that's not really in good taste, dude.
Yeah.
And I think about that with every aspect of life and everybody's way of living. Even if I don't agree with it, I still don't disrespect it at all because hey,
Hmm.
people everyone's different, you know. I'm
Yeah.
sure there are things that I do in my life that a lot of people would not agree with.
Yeah.
4K D races. I'll write that title down as I
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely recommend the Facing the Giants one. The rest of their movies are decent. They're not overly bad, but they kind of get a little preachy the later into their filmography you go.
Yeah, because I remember I watched Ragamuffin on your recommendation, and that was
Mm-hmm.
actually really good. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed that.
Like I've said in the video, and kind of want to revisit. Like I love that movie wasn't afraid to kind of delve into the darker parts of Rich Mullins' life, and like, you know, he struggled with alcoholism and smoking and stuff like that. Where like a lot of Christian movies wouldn't be brave enough to show that kind of thing because, you know, Sunday morning Christian conservative just be cool. And a movie's not afraid to show how serious and real the world can be for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of how my parents were. They also, even though they had their, their beliefs and stuff, they still wouldn't shy away from showing me exactly how the world is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
They didn't try to like shelter me. There's like, hey, this is
Mm-hmm.
how, this is what we believe, this is how we think, but this is how the world is at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's also something that I'm gonna try to teach my sons.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic. What are you guys' most anticipated movie or movies to watch this year? We'll end it with this question because I know you have to get going really quick, Austin.
Yeah, I
So
got to
we'll
get
end
ready
it
for
on
work
this
in
one.
about an hour. Yeah, I can answer first. My most anticipated movie for this year is definitely Denis Villeneuve's Dune movie. Um, I've never seen the one. I think there was one that came out in like the '90s or '80s or something like that. That wasn't really well received for the most part.
Yeah.
But my dad really likes that one. Like he understands the effects and stuff like that just didn't really pay off well. But he's always said like at the core there's a really good story there, and he really likes it. And he always really liked the kind of like one of the reasons I really enjoy sci-fi is you can do a lot of really cool religious kind of commentary, I think, too. And so he always kind of saw a lot of like kind of Christian and Christ-like attributes in the main character. So like I said, I've never seen the original movie, but I'm super excited for the new one to come out. I'm so excited I went and listened to the audiobook for it because I mean the book came out back in the 50s and it's a
Mm-hmm.
complex book, so I'm glad I picked the
It is.
audiobook over reading it. But I'm really excited for it. One of my close friends was like, "Yeah, you should definitely read the book too." And like he went back and like watched the old movie, read the book. Like he's even reading the sequel books and stuff like that. Like he's really into it. So I'd say
Yeah.
Dune is definitely my most anticipated for this year. Originally, it was probably the Batman, but then that got bumped to 2022. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in Dune was actually one of my most the movies I wanted to watch in 2020 that
yeah,
got moved to 21. Um, just because like Denis Villeneuve is my favorite director right now.
yeah,
He like every one of his films I really love. So
oh yeah,
hopefully that still keeps up because I know how
yeah,
divisive that movie is going to be because there's
yeah,
going to be some real hardcore people about it and then there's going to be some like people who watch it
mm-hmm.
just to be entertained.
Yeah,
It is a very complex story. I tried explaining it in that video, but I kind of made a joke about it. Like it's very confusing.
yeah,
I thought of it like I kind of compared it to like Game of Thrones in space, with all
yeah,
like the politics of it and just
mm-hmm.
weird words that you can't
Yeah.
pronounce.
Oh yeah, and it's so epic in its own way where there's like there's what like probably four different stories happening simultaneously and you're going back and forth between them all until they kind of come to one conclusion. So like you're
Hmm.
having to keep track of a lot of different characters and storylines where like at least from a book perspective, you may kind of join in this one conversation and scene and then you don't hear anything about it for like 2 or 3 chapters and then all of a sudden it comes back. So
Yeah.
it's definitely complex. So but I mean if anyone can do it, it's Denis Villeneuve. So or at least do it well. If anyone can do it and do it well, I know I'm confident in his ability.
Yeah, he's definitely a good storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for me, my most anticipated movie. I mean, it was Zack Snyder's Justice League, but if we're
Mhm.
not counting that one, that one's kind of like,
Yeah,
if we're thinking about, the future for right now, I think mine is probably going to be A Quiet Place Part Two,
yeah,
just because it's one the first one I really enjoyed, and it's going to show. This one has the aspects of it that I really wanted to see in the first one, which was how the kind of world went to crap.
yeah. How we got where the characters are when we meet them.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to see in the first one.
Hmm.
So we're
Yeah,
gonna kind of get a glimpse of that
yeah.
in
And it
in this
seems
one.
like we're gonna see like kind of how other people and other groups have adapted to this way of life too. I mean, I've heard early reactions to it are really great, so I'm
Hmm.
definitely excited to check it out.
Also, Army of the Dead. I really want to watch that one just because
Yeah.
that just
I
looks
know.
like a
And
really fun time.
before I really saw any like trailers or heard anything about it, I was like, oh, Zack Snyder's doing a zombie movie, okay. But then I started hearing like all the story premise and kind of the buzz around it. I'm like, I can't wait till Friday. I gotta pop that on Friday morning for sure.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, it just looks like a really fun time. So.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of heard so far in the early reactions is like it knows exactly what it is and it does that really well.
Yeah, I think he's kind of going back to his roots where he's just making really fun films. Like
Hmm.
that's kind of where he started, and a lot of people really liked it. And it wasn't
Yeah,
until he started doing more like in-depth films that really make you think that a lot of people were
yeah,
like, I don't like this.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited to see him kind of go back to where he started.
Also, to go back to the Dune question that you were talking about with
Hmm.
your dad finding all of those Christian themes in Dune. I kind of find
Yeah,
that interesting. I was going to ask you about that because typically, in that realm, science and religion don't really mesh well together.
yeah, yeah. They definitely don't tend to mesh well. At least that's what people say. I feel
Hmm.
like at its core, science in a way is part of, at least for me, like the Christian religion, because, you're kind of exploring all of creation and the things that God made. So, I mean, I feel like one quote I always liked, I don't know if you ever watched the TV show Numbers growing up, the crime drama,
I
where
think
they
I've
where
seen
they
that.
used like math to solve crimes and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
there was one quote by one of the characters. I don't remember if it was in like the theme song or I just remember it from a random episode. But he was always like he always said like the answers, basically the answers to everything is like we all use math every day. All of this stuff is around us. It's just a matter of if you look hard enough and if you see it. It was something along those lines. So I've always kind of like use that as my own kind of mantra when it comes like looking at the world through science, because I'm someone who's fascinated by nature. Like I love nature documentaries, as boring as my wife thinks they are and stuff like that. Like I just love seeing all that kind of stuff. And for me, I think the biggest aspect of it is because I see it all as creation. So I just love seeing the complexities of life and stuff like that. So I find it really, really interesting for myself. And then I think like the science fiction genre of movies kind of takes that and in a way like turns it on its head and really like pushes it in a new direction that's really interesting to kind of ask questions about and create some really cool conversations.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where we're the same too. Growing up in that kind of household, but also like going to school and studying, how the earth works and stuff like that. Just me being
Hmm.
so fascinated with the aspects of science, but also being kind of weary of it because, like, in the religious circles, a lot of people, back, especially back then, would tell you like, oh no, that's this and that's this.
Yeah.
But then just me being so intrigued by how things work,
Hmm.
like I would do a lot of research on my own.
Yeah.
And Dynamic says I enjoyed the live stream, guys. I have to head out now. Take care. Thanks for watching, man. It was I know it's pretty early, especially on
Yeah.
this side of the world. But yeah, thanks for coming in. Actually, thanks to you, everybody, for coming in.
Yeah. We appreciate it. That's a
Awesome,
great last
awesome turnout.
comment.
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, if you're tuning in just now, I mean, you can always watch the replay after this is
Hmm.
ended. I'll post it up, rewatch it, leave a comment, like the video,
Yeah. I have
and
a
with
I
that,
have a I have a collaboration playlist, I'll definitely add this video to it on my channel, and I'll share it again. Because I know, like we said, a lot of people may not have had the chance to join in live, but definitely on the rerun.
But yeah, it was a great conversation to have with you. Glad you're able to join in on it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of the highlights of my week. I was looking forward to it. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. Maybe bring in some other people in the future too.
Yeah, for sure. That's right now. I'm just gonna be doing a few of just the fun ones. We'll have a bunch of people, but like for more in-depth conversations, I kind of want to just keep me and someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely for sure. We'll have to bring in some other people next time.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll do some outros really quick. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you very much, my special guest, Austin St. Pierre. Go ahead and check out his channel. If you want to let the people know what kind of videos you have coming up or anything like that.
Yeah, this week I'm doing a video. I think I'm going to go with the title "Mediocre Movies I Love." So just kind of like some guilty pleasures that I wanted to. I always like we've talked about. I like to recommend kind of more obscure or lesser known stuff for people. So I'm planning on putting that one out on Friday, and then so you can obviously subscribe to my channel to be able to see that. Obviously, because I'm a smaller channel, I don't have the community tab because I think you need like 1,000 subs for that. So to keep most up to date on my channel updates, I try to put it out on my Facebook page and my Instagram, which is always linked to my videos. So if you check out any of my videos, you should be able to get to my social media channels from there too.
Yeah, I'll link one of your last videos in the description for this as well. That way people can get to it.
Cool.
Yeah. Go ahead and follow Austin on Instagram as well, at Austin St. Pierre. Follow me on Instagram at Foxtail Cinematics. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to comment and like. Thanks to everyone for joining in. Even if you do get in here late and you wanted to ask a question, go ahead and drop it in the comments and be sure to answer that.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the comments for the next few days.
But yeah, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for coming in. Like I said, it was just a great conversation. I'm glad you were able to come in because I really wanted to know more about your own perspective of film and just life in general. You've been one of the YouTubers that I think it just has a very unique perspective on this, because of your background and your faith. I think that makes your channel very, very unique and one that I think that a lot more people should be watching.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it. That's my goal, a unique perspective. So,
yeah, definitely have that. All right. So with that, we'll head out. Thank you guys for watching.
Thanks.